Bora Bora is where Charlene Anderson loves to be, but she's had some amazing travel experiences around the world and has met so many remarkable people, like the World War II veteran and Olympic runner Louis Zamperini, and the great-great-great-grandson of Fletcher Christian, the leader of the Mutiny on the Bounty. This is Charlene's travel story. Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My next guest is a longtime flyer who started gaining an interest in aviation as a young child watching the airplanes fly into and out of LAX. Well, now she flies around the world. In particular, she goes very, very often to Bora Bora, among other countries. We're going to talk to her today. She is a Diamond Medallion member on Delta Airlines, and we're going to learn about her history, her flying experience, and what she sees for the future. I'd like to welcome Charlene Anderson to my channel today. Charlene, welcome to my channel. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you, Charlene. Where are you located?
I'm in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where it is snowing right now.
Okay, that's quite a difference from where you normally fly to in Bora Bora.
And that explains why we always go in the late winter, because you're sick of snow by then. So.
Right. So that makes total sense for you to be doing that. Jackson Hole, Wyoming, small airport in the United States. What kind of service do you normally have? Do you have out of that airport to get to other cities? Is there a lot of flights to be able to get out of Jackson?
We have Delta, United, and American fly out of Jackson. The service depends on the season. Ski season, each carrier probably has 3 flights a day. There's a shoulder season that's just coming up where I think it goes down to 2 flights a day, at least on Delta. I don't pay attention to anybody else. And then in the summer, it picks up again. Most of the time, the flights are to Salt Lake City and then connections from there. But during high traffic tourist seasons, we do have direct flights to Atlanta. I think 1 a day does that. They used to have a direct to Minneapolis, but I'm not sure if that is coming back this summer. Things are kind of up in the air. As they are everywhere. But for me, to get to heaven or to get to hell, I have to go through Salt Lake City. So I'm very familiar with Salt Lake City.
And Salt Lake City, of course, has just recently been rebuilt, and they've got a fantastic new Sky Club there. So I'm sure you're enjoying the new experience at Salt Lake City.
Yeah. My first flight landed there the day after the new terminal opened. So it was quite eye-opening. I love it. I know there's a lot of complaints of having to get to the B gates right now with busing, and it's a long haul, and hopefully that will clean up soon. The only times I've gone there twice where I had to connect, and all my connections were in the A terminal, so it was fine for me. And the Sky Club is the most beautiful one, I think, in the whole network.
Yes, I've seen it on a couple of videos. I haven't had the opportunity yet to connect in SLC, but hopefully one day. So with your flying so much on Delta and Salt Lake City, you've made it to the level of Diamond Medallion on Delta. So you've been flying Delta for many years. But before we talk about how you got to your current level of status, I'd like you to let us know a little bit about your history and your interest in flying, how you got into this. If you can just start off talking about, when you were younger.
Okay. In the early 60s, my parents owned a business in Southern California that made nuts and bolts for airplanes. The things that hold the airplanes together, what they made. So they had clients, Lockheed, McDonnell Douglas, Hughes Aircraft, Boeing, all of that. They were their clients. Their warehouse and manufacturing plant was on Century Boulevard, where the Carl's Jr. is now. And those who fly in and out of LA will know where I mean. It's next door to the LA Hilton. That whole block was their business. And when we were out of school, we'd go hang out at the warehouse. We'd get to make boxes to put nuts and bolts in and all that. But my favorite thing was to sit on the steps of the warehouse. And the warehouse was right at the end of the runway. So everything coming and going, you got to see. And it was just, I thought it was fascinating. And I always wondered where everybody was going, what they were doing, what the plane was like, and all of that. And that just kind of got me hooked on airplanes in general. It's funny, my parents were never big travelers. My dad hated to fly, which I thought was kind of ironic considering what he sold to people to hold the airplanes together. He even sold parts to NASA and had parts on the lunar module that ended up the first man on the moon, which was pretty cool. But I just got hooked on flying then, watching all the planes go. My mom and I used to fly to Hawaii once a year on business because they had a lot of business with the military bases there for their parts. And that was the early 60s. So it was Pan Am, massive luxury, all of that. And it was just, and Pan Am made Hawaii the tourist place it is now. And then my parents also owned racehorses. And a lot of the horses raced at the tracks in the Bay Area. And we would fly in the morning on PSA Airlines from LA up to San Francisco to go to the races and then come back the same day. My mom and I did that probably once a week for years. So got a lot of miles in early. I got hooked on Delta when Delta bought Western Airlines. I lived in Honolulu at the time and flew Western back to see my mom and dad probably once every 6 weeks or so. And then when Delta bought Western, it was the changeover. And I just looked at my tags, and I've been with Delta since '85. It says on my original medallion tags that I found.
Now, back in 1985, were you a member of I don't think it was called the Medallion Program.
No, it wasn't.
Back then.
Yeah.
What was it called?
I don't remember what it was called, but I have a really memory of back in the Western days, probably early 80s, that their program was a weird frequent flyer program in that you earned miles when you flew on miles. And at that time, a first class ticket from LA or from Honolulu to LA and back was 5,000 miles. This dates me a bit. That's what you needed. But you earned miles if you use that ticket. So do the math. It's 2,560 miles, I think, from LA to Honolulu, something like that. So you earn more than 5,000. So once you get the 5,000, it was this perpetuating thing where I could continue to fly first class for free for several years. It just rolled into it. I have a lot of memories of whatever the lounge, Western Lounge was called at LAX. It was a big lounge, and I can't remember the name of it, but that's how I ended up flying on Delta. I can remember not too long ago seeing some old Western metal that was still around. You could tell because on the inside of the doors you boarded, there was the WA numbers on it and stuff. I'm sure they're all gone by now, but that's how I got started.
And that all led to your current status of being a Diamond Medallion on Delta. How long have you been a Diamond for?
I think this is my third year. I don't travel a lot of international anymore, except one trip a year. Used to be I did a lot more of it. So I'd be awfully close to Diamond. And finally, when I hit it, I said, I'm not going to let this go. And then the rollover was a big help. And then I have to say the qualifying dollars, my business charges most everything on a Delta Reserve business card. And that helps too, having that option to get there when we're not flying nearly like we used to. I mean, I haven't been to a trade show in a year and a half, and I used to go to like 6 of them a year,
Oh, yeah. So one thing I like to do is kind of personalize this and talk about the why we fly. What makes everybody unique? When you're at an airport, you see all these travelers and you always wonder, what are they going for? Are they personal reasons? And I think that these videos give everybody a nice opportunity to really put that personal touch on it. So for what reasons are you flying?
I'm flying right now. I'm flying for 2 reasons. One, our annual vacation, which was now biannual because we missed last year. And then I'm flying to Salt Lake City for a specialist ophthalmologist stuff. I did the math, and it's a 6-hour drive from Jackson to Salt Lake. It's not a fun drive in the winter. You need to pay for a hotel. It's cheaper for me to fly down and come back the same day. So I've been doing that probably 6 times since the pandemic started. I trying to get to see my mom in California, but very, very difficult. So our big trip that we just got back from was to Bora Bora. That's our favorite place in the world to go. So we went this year. It was a struggle, and it ended up a struggle all the way through because the borders closed while we were there. And then we had to get home with closed borders and flight cancellations and all that. But it was still worth it because it's Bora Bora, so it's great.
How did you make it back?
I had some ahead of the news from the manager of the Four Seasons there, who gave me an estimate of when the borders were going to close, which was February 3rd, and then when the hotel was going to close, which were two different things, because once you were there, the French government said you could stay. So then the issue came, how long can the hotels push it and then have flights for all the American tourists, which are the majority, get home? And he told me it looks like it was going to be the 10th. So when I heard that, which was about on the 4th of February, I got online and was able to get everything changed over as conveniently as could be. And then it ended up, a lot of people had trouble. And we were on, I think, the last flight out of Papeete to Los Angeles. And they normally, Air Tahiti Nui normally flies 2 flights a week. And they were going to drop it down to once every 2 weeks. And only for that emergency kind of stuff, the affidavits you have to fill out and all of that. So
Right.
it was an interesting trip. We had to go to LA early to get COVID tested because nowhere in Jackson could guarantee that we got it within the 72 hours. So we spent 3 days in LA beforehand. And then once you arrive in Bora Bora or any of the French Polynesian islands, you have to self-test 4 days after. And then you give that to your hotel and they take care of it. And then the French government set up testing at the airport in Papeete because now we're after the 26th of January, which was the date you now need testing to get back into the US. So they fortunately set up a small clinic in the baggage or the luggage storage area of the little Papeete airport. And they did the testing there and they had the results within an hour. Kind of unfortunate timing is they set their clinic to close there at 4 p.m. and the flights out don't leave till almost midnight. So you have to sit there all day at the airport once it's done. But it did get done. They were very efficient in getting it done and we made it back home.
Excellent. So there were a series of challenges in order to complete this trip, unlike normal times. And you mentioned that you flew on Air Tahiti Nui, which is not part of the SkyTeam network.
Right.
Was that intentional? I'm assuming that you would probably want to stay within network to get some more Sky miles, but you didn't in this case. So what was the story behind that?
We had tickets on Air France, which is a partner airline. And about June, I just had this feeling. I said, this isn't going to work. They're not going to be opened up. Tahiti was still closed at that time. They were closed June, July, and August, or July, August, and September, a 3-month period. And I just had this feeling that I don't think Air France is going to be able to do this. So I went in and I bought 2 fully refundable tickets on Air Tahiti Nui as a backup. So I said, okay, if this doesn't work, I've got this, fine. If Air France cancels, they got to give me my money back anyway, because they canceled. So I sat on it, and about November, come to find out, Air France canceled because they can't fly into LA. Their flight normally went from Paris to LA to Papeete. Now it's going Paris, Vancouver, Papeete, or it did before the border closed. And as Americans getting into Canada is a whole other kettle of fish and all that. So that was a case where being paranoid about something happening. And I had nothing to lose by doing it except having some money tied up in that meantime. And in the end, it worked.
Yeah. Now, pre-pandemic, would you normally fly in Air France to get there?
Yes. Yeah, that's what we've done. Yeah. This is our 4th trip flying to Bora Bora. We've done cruises that included Bora Bora. My husband worked as the manager of the photography concession on a 5-star cruise line and been there several times that way. But flying, we've always done Air France.
Very nice. So let's back up a little bit. Pre-pandemic, pre-2020, how did you get to your diamond status? Was it really because of those trips to Bora Bora? Did you do a lot of domestic flights? Did you go to Salt Lake City and go to other places for conventions?
Bora Bora helps. I try to visit my mom at least twice a year, more if I can. And then I have to go to a lot of trade shows as a buyer for my business on an online retail store, going to trade shows, whereas the other piece of the puzzle, and maximizing my credit cards in a way that got me as much as I could towards Delta was another thing I used. I would like to share an experience we did on this trip, sort of intentionally, but not, and that was to use the private suite at LAX. They're now calling it P/S to try to do a rebrand, but I did it on the outgoing and wasn't going to do it on the inbound coming home. But I did it specifically so I didn't have to stand in line at LAX with the COVID testing documents and all that stuff that Tahiti required. I said, okay, this is going to cost a small fortune, but at least I'm not around a whole bunch of people. I'm immunocompromised myself and I've just gotten my first vaccine. So I said, I don't want to risk being around people. This way it's quiet and peaceful and all that. It was the most incredible thing I've ever done. And I've done a lot of really good stuff, but this, I heard from people later that there were fights had broken out in the line because people didn't have the right documents.
Wow.
They were screaming at people. They were throwing things, all this drama. All I had to do was email my documents to the team at the private suite. And then, of course, you're in this little suite, across the runway from the airport. And when it's time to leave, you have food and drink and all that. They get you and they take you in the car and you go up the stairs or the elevator, depending on the plane, and you get on the plane first. And it was brilliant because we avoided all that stress and drama and all that. And granted, it was ridiculously expensive. Then coming back, it was like, oh my God, this is such a mess. I said, we're going to do it on the way back. It was even better because we'd sat at the Papeete airport from noon till midnight. And that airport has no air conditioning outside. The gates to go into the lounges don't open until 3 hours before flight time. So we're sitting there just hot and sweaty and all this. And so we got off that plane in LA and there was a person there with your little name and everybody's having to show their COVID documents to get off the plane. Well, we saw her and I just put my hand up and she came up and took us down the elevator in the car over to the private suite, shower room, waiting. It was just so brilliant. It was, if you could do it, do it. It's not something I could afford to do very often, but for this trip, it just made it so nice. It would be something I would use if I could afford it. And now you know how ultra celebrities can fly and not have any hassles. That's exactly why. Checking our luggage, they take care of it all. Customs, they took care of the luggage. They have a TSA agent and Customs and Border Patrol in the private suite. So we cleared customs in the private suite and we cleared immigration in the private suite in less than 30 seconds. I mean,
Wow,
that was it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So you can imagine getting off a Dreamliner in LA, even with global entry, what it could have been like versus what it ended up like. So
talk briefly about your experience aboard aircraft during the pandemic. Many of us are flying at very, very reduced frequencies, including yourself, not too often. How did you feel on the Delta aircraft as well as the Air Tahiti Nui aircraft flying across the Pacific in terms of safety and comfort with the pandemic going on right now?
I've had no problem with Delta. Block center seat or block seat next to me in first. Not an issue whatsoever. And Air Tahiti Nui, I think they did quite well. The issue on that flight was a lot of guests were unwilling to keep the masks above their nose and mouth, and they thought it was okay here. And the flight attendants didn't say anything, which I found really annoying. I mean, it's a rule. You may not like it. I don't like it, but you do it. Delta, on the other hand, getting on the flight in Salt Lake to come back to Jackson, couple people tried to get on with this thing, and the flight attendant at the door said, your mask has to be over your nose and mouth. Mm-hmm. And the pilot was great. He also said, if you don't want to wear, he made the announcement, if you don't want to wear your mask over your nose and mouth, why don't you just get off now and save us all the trouble of having to come back to the gate? And I love the frankness of that, because it's like, really, just tell us now, if this is a problem, you can get off and we'll be done, and not that, And I think Delta's done a great job. Air Tahiti Nui, the flight attendants could have been a little more proactive. The plane on Air Tahiti Nui was immaculate, so no complaints whatsoever about that part of it. Kind of weirdness is the business class people could not use the business class labs on that flight. They said they were reserved for the pilots. Right, yeah. So that meant everybody had to cram back into the middle. And I changed clothes on a long flight. I put sweatpants and all that on. So it was kind of a struggle to change in there, but I think they did fine. I wouldn't say it would be my first choice, but I would fly them again.
Okay, very good to know. Now that you are in the process of getting vaccinated, do you think that you're going to be increasing your flying schedule once you're fully vaccinated?
No, because if the trade shows aren't there, there's really, there's not a lot of travel. I will go see my mom for sure. In fact, I already have a ticket booked for that in May to see her again. And but as far as trade shows are not happening. My first one looks like it'll be October if it goes. It's interesting. Next week, I have 4 virtual trade shows all in the same week.
So in terms of maintaining your status, Delta Airlines, at least at the time of this video is being recorded, has not said anything about extending status another year. Of course, we're all grateful for the status extension from 2020 to 2021. What are your personal thoughts? Do you hope that they're going to be extended? Are you going to be comfortable if you're not going to make Diamond for the next year?
I think I'll make it because of the rollover and the qualifying dollars on my Delta Reserve card. So I think I will. I mean, that $250 is a lot, but I buy most of my business inventory on that card. So I feel comfortable. I don't think my husband is going to be platinum again because he doesn't do that kind of stuff. And the only place he's flown in the last 2 years was this trip to Bora Bora. His family is in London, and that's out of the question. So he hasn't seen his family in almost 2 years now. So I think that's the first flight he'll be taking when things open up. Yeah. And everybody's in some semblance of being able to travel.
Tough to get there at this time, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we're all hoping that things will get back to normal very, very soon. Charlene, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we end the session today?
I'd like to thank the people in the group, the members of the group, for teaching me a lot about things that I never used before, the certificates especially. I'm very good.
Delta Diamond Medallion Facebook group. Just want to, so the audience.
Yes, the Delta Diamond Medallion Facebook group. Yeah, because I never use them, I didn't know a whole lot about them, and now I know how to use them to best advantage. I've always been very, very good about working a system within the rules to get as much as I can get. 2 things I've never gotten, believe it or not, and I've been flying since 1960 was my first flight. So I've never gotten a Porsche ride, and I've never gotten a note from a flight attendant. Now, isn't that crazy? I see them in the group all the time, and I'm like, I just must be flying the wrong stuff here,
Same here. I've been Diamond for about 3 years, and no Porsche ride, no letter so far, but I still love Delta.
Yeah, I mean, thank God this was the airline we were affiliated with when this started, right? Because I flew American once in recent memory, and it's like I would like to forget it. People just don't get it, It's a more consistent product. Not that it doesn't have its faults and its problems and all that, but for the most part, it's a more consistent product that you can sort of count on being the way it should be.
Well, thank you so much, Charlene, for your time. I really appreciate that. I know you are an avid traveler and you've been to many, many interesting places, and I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. And to all my viewers out there, thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to be featured in any of these videos, just leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell button so that you're alerted as to every time I post something new. There you go. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Charlene.
Bye now.
Bye now.